Hello, good people. Come on in. We've got another edition for you tonight of Paranormal Point of View. I'm your host, Dennis Carroll, and we're going to have a fantastic show for you tonight, okay? You're going to really love this one. I've been reading again. Yes, I do that a lot. I love to read the books, definitely. I knock a few out as many as I can anyway. And books are not only good entertainment, you can learn something if you're not careful from them, definitely. But with that in mind, I got a couple of announcements to make. First off, right off, don't forget my show Demonology tonight. That'll be this Sunday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time with Grizzly Chris. Okay, don't forget that and put that on your calendar, definitely. And um, also, I will be having the next episode of Hunting the Shadows, which will be Wednesday night, coming up Wednesday night at 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, I'm going to say hello to a few people. Hello, there's Derek in here already. Yeah. Shiro, my good friend Shiro. Jojo, Aussie Sue. And we got Midwest Night Watchers. Yes, they're watching tonight. He's out there watching the night for us, folks. Definitely. And he's a good guy to have on your side. And Melissa Lester, thank you for joining us tonight, Melissa. And we'll be waiting for a few more interesting folk to show up. And definitely got another announcement. I am starting definite production on the Midnight Road Excursions into the Unknown. Okay. So that's going to be coming up very shortly. Hello, Juno, brother, my brother. And so we'll be looking for that down the road, okay? And I'm writing the script, still writing some of the scripts for it and all that, but it's coming, folks. Trust me. Don't give up on me yet, okay? But now we're gonna have a fantastic show tonight. Got a good friend of mine, good and brother, uh, and we're gonna be talking about his new book out here, definitely. And he is a legend in his own time. I'm gonna say that about Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. Okay, folks. He is the man, the myth, and the legend. Okay, and here he is now.
Well, thanks for that. I don't know about
There
all
he
that
is.
kind of yeah.
That's a hard introduction to follow.
Yeah, man. I don't know if I'm legendary status yet. I'm not up to your expertise yet. But I'm
But
learning.
anyway, we always have fun when we get together.
Yeah,
Definitely,
we
we
do.
always do into something different. I've been on your show a few times. Actually,
Yeah.
we're plotting a Christmas show again this
Yeah.
year, so
In fact, I'm
that'll
gonna
be
have to
interesting.
after this show, we'll have to
Yeah,
set up a time because that's starting to book
mhm.
again. I'm booking my Christmas shows already here in November.
Oh yeah.
I try to stay a month ahead.
I tell
Yeah.
people a lot. People say oh, Halloween's got to be your favorite. Nah, I love Halloween, but Christmas is my favorite. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna say something about Christmas. It is another time of the year when that veil is thin, when weird mystical stuff happens. To me, it's a good season. I love it. Everything
Yeah.
about it, definitely. So you have written a book, my friend. Now let me say this about your book.
Okay.
Without a doubt, I devoured this book. Okay, it is a
Okay.
great book. I've got to recommend this to everybody out there. I've got it right here in my hands. Here it is: Two Cryptid Encounters, Book One, folks. Rob Carnifel. And I gave your real name out.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
but
it's
anyway,
on
that's
the
your
book.
secret. That's your secret identity, or what?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, it is on the book, so I wasn't gonna make up a fake name, because we all have
Yeah,
because I have just a little bit of an ego, So I
there
said I'm
you
gonna
go.
put my name on it. What
Uh,
it's all right. But I
but
like
I'm gonna
how
tell you what.
yeah,
Let me tell you what. You did an excellent job with it. Okay, and I know you had how many stories in this?
45.
For 45 stories. I know it's a lot, and that was a lot of work because you had to reword a lot of those. I'm sure because
Yes.
these are people's sightings. Is that right?
Yes, these are all people's encounters from I started well, actually, when I started my YouTube channel, the
Uh-huh.
Bigfoot Mission Rob channel 2 years ago, I just dropped a link that said, "Hey, if you have an encounter story and you wanna
Uh-huh.
be anonymous, send it on over." And I would maybe do make a video out of it, which I did a lot. I do that as
Right.
well. So
Uh-huh.
over a couple of years of getting all these emails from they're either subscribers on my channel or they're just emails from random people, I started reading them and I was thinking, "Man, I got all this material," and some of it's on video format. I said it'd be a
Uh-huh.
great idea to, put a book together. But I gotta tell you, it was a lot of work because what I had to do, I had to get in contact with all these people because I
Right.
wasn't going to publish their story
Uh-huh.
without telling them and getting their permission. Because you can run a lot
Oh, yeah.
you get a lot of problems, I found out.
Uh-huh.
So, granted, the vast majority said yes. Then I said again, "But I can't plagiarize it. I'm not gonna copy what you wrote because I had to." Some of these people, Dennis, I mean, for what they had in their encounters, they lacked in descriptive words, so I had to call a lot of the people back. "Where exactly
Uh-huh.
was this? Give me some this of the state if you don't wanna give up the location and just describe
Mm.
the setting," because, when you write a book, you gotta create a picture. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
that was kinda challenging, as you made mention earlier, to do this. So it took me it took me literally a year and a half to really write it and do it right. And it was my first book, and we were talking, it's all trial and error. I did all the editing. I did everything from front to scratch, except for the artwork. The artwork's done by Jason McLean. I think you know him too, Dennis. He's a good friend of mine. And
Uh-huh.
so yeah, he did that. And then of course I do a little research on it and I'm pretty happy with it so far.
Uh-huh. Well, JoJo said she loves the book cover, and I agree with you, JoJo. That's some great illustration there, and showed again.
Yeah,
And I'll put it up on the screen again in a few minutes. But look at
sure.
that. That is neat. I love that. I love that dog man there. Definitely.
Oh, for sure.
Um, yeah, that's some good work.
Yeah.
Definitely. Absolutely. I like that. You can say what you want to say, but a book, everybody judges a book by its cover. That's just the way that goes.
Yes.
And I like a cover that reaches out and grabs you, and this one definitely will because that's the dog man right in the front on that. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
I
it's
was
good.
I the cover was really important because I'm like an impulse buyer and I do read a lot of books. I also
Mhm,
read a few I'm not big on the magazines now because if you buy a magazine, it's $15 and all it is advertising with maybe
mhm,
two good articles in it. But I'm the type of person, if I see a cover of a book in like a Barnes and Noble, and if it
mhm.
pops, I impulsively will buy it. I'll read the back of it, see what it's about, but if the cover is cool, I buy it. So I wanted to make sure
Uh,
at least too that it would have some eye-popping appeal, and certainly Jason did a great job with that cover.
well, I told somebody that the other day, Rob. I just wonder, since we're on the subject, definitely, um, how many great books have been passed up by people that never read them because they had a bad cover.
Yeah,
But that's being human. That's just human.
yeah. Mhm. Just
Yeah.
like when you go into the grocery store and you're sitting in line, you're waiting to check out your groceries, and on all the end caps of all the magazines, all the candy bars, and you just see them, and if it looks interesting, you grab it. So, to me, appeal, because when I went to college, I got a marketing major in college as well, and that was one of the first things they always taught you.
Uh-huh.
Eye-popping visuals stimulate people to buy impulse
Oh
purchases.
yeah.
Now, a book's not
Yeah.
necessarily an impulse purchase, but if you have a boring cover, yeah,
Uh-huh.
I'll pass up something that looks boring.
That's another marketing trick. You put sex on there. Put the word sex.
Yeah,
Now that I've got your attention, here's
yeah,
what you need to see. That gets everybody right there. Hey, what is that?
yeah,
So definitely, you won't reach out and grab them, definitely. But what really tells the tale, Rob, is the
yeah,
contents.
right, yeah,
And that's what I like about this book. Like I said earlier when we were talking about this little show, I like something seeing through the eyes of other people, the experiences they've had. In my whole career in the paranormal, I have loved case histories. I've poured over thousands of them, sightings and all that. I go through them. It's seeing through other people's eyes their experience, and that's a remarkable thing, you know.
I think so. And this book really means a lot to me because I have to tell you that, and really what spurred on again, I created my channel, and then even the spirit the writing of the book is personal to me because I remember when I had my encounter back in 2018, which was very traumatic. Um, and I had nowhere to go, right, to tell my story. At least I felt like if I were to tell somebody what I experienced, people would judge me, think I was cuckoo, nuts,
Mhm.
making something up. But that's something that happened to me, right? And I was lost and alone for a very long time, to be honest with you. Then, of course, my
Right.
girlfriend passed away. A lot of people I see in chat know my story. I'm not going to get into my encounter per se, but for me, it was something that I held. I owned a business. I didn't go to work for 6 months. I just told my manager, "Look, man, I got to figure some things out here, and you're not going to believe what I have to tell you. Perhaps I'll tell you when I get back to work." So, and I could trust the guy, and he did me good. He didn't do anything. He didn't rip me off, basically. And so I went on this journey, and I finally got a collection of people that told me, "Rob, you weren't being crazy." And the first thing I did is you got to communicate this. So I went on a couple shows and told my story, and then my the Bigfoot Mission Rob channel evolved, and then the stories that I was getting from the people hit me differently than most because I'm not a believer in the paranormal. I am a knower. Even as a little kid growing up, I've seen many. I've seen one Bigfoot, which I don't, which is wasn't even a Bigfoot because to me it turned into a demon. It had a demonic force. And again, I thought it had something to do with what happened to my girlfriend who passed away shortly thereafter. And then, so the people's stories, I really have a place in my heart. So when I told it and wrote these stories, it was coming from a place of depth, right? It was coming from a place that where I've been there. And I know a lot of these people in this book were hurting. So their stories had to be told. And with their approval, of course, they said, yes, please do so. So I have a lot of, I'm very grateful and humbled at doing this.
Mhm. Well, you know, people don't realize, Rob, when you have this kind of an experience, and I've had that myself, several of them over the years, what a life changing thing it is, you know, until they have it happen to them. They don't really realize
Yes.
how it really just sort of, I call it like turning a corner in your life, and hey, you're on a whole different other street, you know,
Yes.
and it definitely has that effect on you, without a doubt. Now, JoJo's got a good question. How many stories did Rob have to choose from to decide on the 45? That's an interesting one.
Well,
How
yeah,
many
it
did
is.
you have?
I tell you what, there's 92. I've got like 92. And
Mm.
out of the
Oh,
92, they were all good, all of them. And I had a very tough time. And I was going to say, should I do 100 and try to get 8 more and make it 100? But then that would have been such a big, thick book. And then I was
uh-huh,
thinking, well, this is my first book, and I'm probably
uh-huh,
going to screw some things up being a novice at it. So I said, look, if book one does well, I've got another 50 for book two. So
okay,
those will be coming out. I'll wait for this one
good.
to sell maybe a year. I'll wait a year, I guess, whatever. I don't know what the time frame would be. But yeah, that will be so book two is ready. I'm ready of all of the stories for book two. It's just a matter of formatting them, rewriting
Uh,
them, and
uh,
doing what I need to do. So
I'm looking forward to book two. Actually, when you get through with book one, you definitely want to. Folks are going to want to really see book two. Let me say something since you kind of brought that up about your own experience and all that. There are
yeah,
several stories in here that have that kind of a demonic flavor to them. The
there
one
are.
I'm going to cite is one of my favorites in here. I'm not going to tell the whole story. People have to wait
Yep.
and read it. But it's the red eyes that followed them home. I mean, that's very demonic sounding thing. What do you think about that?
I think
Do you
anything
think?
that follows you home to me is first of all, it's terrifying for one, but the red eyes, yes, demonic. What was the title of that one? Because I have so many. Do you remember? The story itself because I think there's a couple like that in there, but red eyes following home. I think it followed them for many miles. I think
Hmm.
it followed them along the wood line all the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
home. Yeah, no,
all the
I
way
tell
home.
you,
Yeah,
yeah, that I can't
yeah,
imagine if that was me personally, and I'm out camping or hunting, or it's the twilight, and I see these eyes bipedally following me, the lateral movements, and then all of a sudden,
right.
and then I believe they got on the freeway. That's right.
Hmm.
They were in the woods, the red eyes following them, and then
Hmm.
they get out of the forest and they get home. Now where they lived in the forest. So when they
Yeah.
got home, they went in. I think they unpacked their gear. They went into take a shower. Then they went on their back veranda at
Hmm.
nighttime to relax. And lo and behold, from their wood line were those red
Yeah.
eyes. Now that
That's freaky, freaky, freaky.
Yeah, I mean, you have the experience with the demonic, and my first thought was definitely something demonic. I mean, what does that?
Well,
We've all heard
that's
stories.
the telltale sign, Rob. The red eyes. That's
Yeah,
definitely a demonic giveaway.
okay. So, but yeah,
Hmm.
that's and you see the red eyes, and you could turn on television, watch a spooky story. There's always red eyes associated with
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Well, not every pair of red eyes out there is demonic, definitely,
Yeah,
but the very way this thing tracked them home, and the experience afterwards, and what he said he saw afterwards. I mean, that to me sounds downright demonic, without doubt. I just wonder how many of these stories are connected to something like that. It's interesting.
I think a lot of it. Well, on my shows too, and you know this, Dennis. We've talked quite often. I think all these things are connected, whether it's cryptids and the paranormal,
Hmm.
or if it's ghost stories, time travel. Maybe not so much time travel, but even so, I think that's an element that could have evil associated with it. One story in this book that really got me, and I'm not going to read it. I can tell it from memory, which I think it's one of the last stories in the book was about the priest in the southern town
Oh yeah.
where this priest, he's kind of one of these transient priests. For whatever reason, he went from congregation to congregation,
Mhm.
preaching, and he winds up at this southern town.
It's kind of
And
like a circuit preachers they used to call circuit preachers. Yeah.
yeah, okay, yeah. In fact, you used to see those in Wild West movies. There's always some preacher that was from
Hmm.
went town to town.
Yeah.
And so this preacher, he sets up shop in this again, this small town, and as he explains the town, it's very poor, then very poor healthcare system in this part of town, no jobs. Most people were struggling day to day to get by. And so he's having a sermon one night or day or night, I forget which, but and then this young couple follows him outside at the end of the sermon, and they proceed to tell him the story about this dog. It appears to be like a Doberman Pinscher that would
Hmm.
visit their window every night and glowing and looking at them with red eyes. And telepathically, this creature, this dog, was telling them that he was going to get them. He was going to eat them. He was watching them, and they would hear these things either in a dream or through a telecommunication. So this priest hears this, and he turned a blind eye. And then a couple weeks later, again, this young couple comes to him, and again, Father, preacher man, you got to help us. These dreams are getting more vivid. They're getting this dog, like demon dog, is appearing each and every night. So he told them that he to go see a health specialist. He basically, Dennis, and he's a preacher man. Well, I question, and I know why he probably went from town to town. He did not believe them and shunned them and said that they were evil and don't come back. And in fact, he told them not to go back to church.
Hmm.
So, speeding forward in this story, this young couple starts to look more and more haggard. They're standing outside of the church. and they're looking terrible. They're getting gaunt. Their complexion is fading, white, ghostly looking. A week, couple week, and again they once again come to this priest. He said, "Look, you didn't get any help. I can't help you till you help yourself and get medical help attention." A few days later, the husband of this young couple he murders his wife, and then he
mm,
took his own life.
mm,
Now this preacher all of a sudden is questioning his he's in the book he's telling me that he's questioning his beliefs. He's praying to God to lead him down the right path. Did he fail these people? What should he do? So the word gets out about this couple, and so now they all gather and they have a town hall meeting, and the preacher is involved. They said, "Preacher, we need to get the story." Preacher goes on to tell this story to this big congregation of of town folk, and he's telling about the couple that committed suicide and about this dog like demon like dog visiting them and communicating telepathically. Everybody in this church, Dennis, and everyone listening, they fell silent. This preacher now drops to his knees, starts literally weeping in front of the whole congregation, where people started coming forth. The sheriff of the town puts his hand on the preacher's shoulder and says, "We know exactly what you're talking about." And a handful of these people in the church or at the town meeting told this preacher that they were having the same exact experiences, but
mm.
they never told it. They kept it to themselves, and they didn't help anybody. They all knew. And it kind of reminds me, Dennis, of like a Stephen King novel. Creepy little town, everybody has a dark secret,
Yeah.
but they keep it to themselves type of thing before this explodes into the suicide or the murder suicide. So, but now the preacher thought this whole town was evil, though. How can you hold such a thing from each other? How come you didn't seek help to fight this demon?
Well,
Next
see
more,
that's a mistake a lot of people make, Rob. When this demonical manifestation occurs, they ignore it and write it off as something else.
yes.
You know.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's what they did. And then, so the preacher now is again, he's packing his bags and he's getting ready. He's skedaddling out of there. He wants nothing to do with this group. And as again, he's is probably his 10th congregation in 20 years that he's preached at. So the morning that he's going to leave, he opens his front door with his bags in hand, and on his front porch, there's a basket with a towel or a blanket over the basket. He looks down at this basket and he sees that the basket is the towel, the blanket is moving. He goes, "What is this?" So he goes in, opens the blanket into the basket, and inside the basket is a puppy of a Doberman Pinscher.
Mm,
Like, and again, everyone in the town had said they'd seen their dog-like apparition kind of looked like a Doberman Pinscher, and this is what this man, this priest, preacher, whatever he claims to be, that's what
yeah.
was on his front porch. So he picks up the dog, the puppy, and he goes directly to the sheriff's office. He leaves it on the sheriff's front doorstep, and he left town.
Mm.
So I tell you, that's spooky. Now, was the townsfolk playing a trick on this guy? I mean, were they just being, is this how mean and malicious these townspeople were? Or is this something else? Right? I don't know.
Mm. That's interesting. And another thing about this itinerant preacher, he didn't seem to be a man of great faith in some aspects, and
Right.
maybe he was frightened by all this more than he really realized or wanted to let on that he was.
Yeah.
in that respect, and you couldn't blame him in a way. Definitely,
Yeah.
when you run into freaky stuff like that, you know. But that's
Yeah.
what you got. You got a lot of this in that book, you know, stuff like
Yeah.
that that makes you question, well, what's really going on here? And we had one comment here about the telepathic communication that supposedly happens. That's another demonic kind of a thing there. I mean, something that's trying to get in your mind and talking to you that way does not sound good to me. What do you think?
I don't think it sounds good either. Now, I do know I have friends, I won't mention their names. A lot of people know these people that claim that they have mind speak with like or telecommunications with like Bigfoot.
Uh,
And I will tell you this, some of these people are legitimate in the fact that I was telling my story to this friend who I had on a show. And and on the show, Dennis, I about fell out of my chair because she communicated something to me about this creature that I saw and told her that he meant me no harm or my girlfriend. Now that's public knowledge. My story is public knowledge. But the one thing that she told me on my show was this: I came from behind the red barn. I will tell you this. You can ask anybody that's heard my story in chat, anybody over the last several years that's heard the story. I never bring up a red barn at all. I've never spoken on it. You won't find it written anywhere. You won't hear me on a video. You won't see me say it on anyone's show because to me, the red barn was just insignificant, but it was a building that was at the location of my sighting.
uh,
That, Dennis, was true. That was proof in the pudding for me because I was skeptical about this person saying that they have mind speak with these creatures, right? Bigfoot, if you will. But when she told me that live on my show, on air, I people in chat made comments, Rob, you look like you're turned pale. And I actually had to blank myself out for a couple of minutes and get my composure because that was the most as frightening as my encounter was for somebody to tell me something that they should not know, that I never communicated to anybody to know that. It made me a believer in certain things about psychic mediums, perhaps, right? Or people that, I mean, this person apparently talked to this because on the show she said that she was having mind speak with my creature during the show, and that creature told her that about the red barn. That's how I would know that she wasn't full of bunk. So I tell you what, that's a very haunting thing for me to experience out of the blue like that. So back to your question, I think that some people have these abilities. Do I think it's demonic? Well, I always tell people that I think that my encounter had a demonic resonance to it or undertones because it looked like a person with Down syndrome that manifested or more metamorphosized into a demonic creature. I mean, it totally transformed from a person, a human, into some beast like you'd see in a Marvel comic book. And of course, that story. My story is actually in the book as well. So yeah, Dennis, I think there's something to it. I think there are fakes out there, but I think there are legitimate people too out there.
Well, we can't lose sight, Rob, of the fact that the demonic has many times, and I have experienced this my own self, okay, personally, face to face, like you're talking about, things like that, that they could not have known knowledge, but they have
Yep.
a preternatural knowledge. We've got to realize that these things are very malevolent. They know a lot. I said this the other day on one of my programs. Their intelligence level is off the board,
Yeah.
okay, because we do not know how incredibly old these things are and how much accumulation of knowledge and things that they know is mind boggling. And our puny intellect would be nothing compared to those. But now, when it comes to psychics and so what we call psychics, mediums, or whatever, I look upon a lot of these people as having a gift.
Yes.
It can be a gift from God, or it can be a gift from somebody else. You've got to be very careful who and what you're dealing with in these matters, you know,
Sure.
and you got to take it with a large box of salt, not just a grain, but a large box of
Mm.
salt. You got to be very careful because you do not know when you're communicating, like even with these Bigfoot or Dogman thing, you really do not know who you are talking to. You've got to be very, very careful. But they have a lot of preternatural knowledge, without a doubt.
Okay. So let me ask you then. I never really asked anybody this. So again, this all happened, and again, I do respect this person. I'm friends with this person that told me this. Where do you think that comes from? I mean, it that's another thing that still to this day kind of floors me. How somebody just knew that about my sighting of this red barn, and I never disclosed it to anybody. Anybody, not even my closest friends and family. But this person picked it out. Then I
Mhm.
started thinking, I started over analyzing the was I giving out clues? Because I know a lot of the ones that are clever that are just out to make money, they pick up on what you see or say, and they are smart enough to contrive something. I don't think this was contrived. I think this really happened truthfully and without any scheme, right? So still I wonder about that. So you believe that that probably did happen or in your opinion about the
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Because I know I've seen these things have that natural, that knowledge, preternatural knowledge on
okay.
things. Like I'll give you a quick illustration. I ran into a demonic force in one locale that knew my middle name. I did not give it my middle name. Okay, nobody in that whole thing, that whole situation, knew my middle name.
Yeah.
About 2 months later, in a completely different location, a completely different situation, that same demon showed up and called me by that middle name again.
Oh wow.
So I mean, I've seen these things firsthand that they will do that. But I think a lot of they here's what they're doing, Rob, and you got to remember this too. If this is truly a demonic thing, they're trying to shake you up,
Hmm.
okay? And they're trying to shake your foundation of faith or whatever you feel that you hold close to your heart, whatever that is, that feeling you have. They're trying to shake you up emotionally because that's the way they attack people. They can attack you emotionally, physically, mentally, and spiritually. We've talked about that before on your show.
Yeah.
That's the way they go, and they're trying to shake you up emotionally. So you have to be very careful. And they may be using these people without their knowledge, you understand, to do
Okay.
that to you. Yeah, that's the way
Yeah,
that goes.
that's I never really looked at it that way. Now it's just another it's another thing to ponder over, you know.
Hmm. Yeah.
You
People get used and don't realize it sometimes by these forces. Although they may be good people, they don't realize they're being used in a bad way. So you have to be very careful, definitely, when dealing with things like that. And that's why I caution people about this, what they say about Bigfoot, doll man, with a telepathic thing. That does not sound good. That sounds like it's trying to touch you spiritually in a way that maybe you shouldn't be touched. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
right. Yeah, oh yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
And so like I say, so yeah, so in that book there's a as you mentioned, there's a handful of those similar stories. And
Hmm.
that's why I say all these things are connected. I'm not the person that's going to go out there and I'm not going to say that Bigfoot is the friendly forest giant, right? You know,
Oh, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it's I and of course the dog man is something that to me is inherently evil personally. And people can be flack about that. Well, how do you know? Well, I've never heard one dog man encounter which ended up good. And I'm not suggesting people died, but it was always something terrifying
Uh-huh.
and made people move their location, move their house. There's a story in this book, and I think the government has a lot to do with it. I think a lot of these things are even created. And a story in the book, really quickly, if you want, I can share really quick, is just
Yeah.
about in an Indiana State Park, there was husband and wife and their son. Now, the husband and son were Bigfoot researchers on the side. So they liked it, they enjoyed it. And this took place in the 2020s, the year 2020 or 2021.
Uh-huh.
And they went, they had to packed up their big RV. And this state park in Indiana allowed you to trail horses there because they had a lot of trails to ride the horse. And they're very familiar. They've been going there for 5 or 6 years. So they pack everything together, get the RV together, and they get out to the Indiana State Park. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I disclose this all in the book, the name of the park and everything, but for the point of the show, I'm, you know, Reader's Digest here. So they get there and they all mount the horse. They get the RV there. The trailer is parked 20, 30 yards away. Get the horses out, saddle them up. The husband and wife get on one horse, the son gets on another. Now, I did mention that the son and the father looked for Bigfoot. I wouldn't call them
Uh-huh.
researchers, but they were enthusiasts. So they're getting, but as soon as they got to this park, though, they noticed a very pungent smell, something unlike, and yes, they were familiar since a lot of horses were there. Yes, a lot of horse manure obviously is dropped. So, but it wasn't quite that type of smell. They get on this trail, and about a quarter mile into the trail, this they notice big pieces of scat. Okay,
Uh-huh.
the boy, the son and the dad get off the horse. The wife stays on the horse, and they inspect the scat because again, they are kind of researchers. And they thought it looked odd, and the wife is like, "What are you guys looking at?" "Oh, hang on, honey, just we're looking at something," because they thought it looked very unusual because it wasn't really horse. It was, but something almost canine like. They go
Uh-huh.
further up the trail and they see these quadrupedically sets of big, oversized wolf prints. Now, I will tell you this: there are no wolves in this state part of Indiana. None. Okay.
Uh-huh.
When I say none, that sounds factual and finite. Perhaps there are. I don't know. But if you look and do research, they're very far few and in between, right? So,
Got it.
but then they go further up the trail, then they see these wolf prints turn bipedal, where now it's just a set of like a human being walking. Very big. They take a measurement, 6 inches long, 4 inches wide, what have you. They turn around and they go back. They say, "Well, we're done with this. This is really weird." And in fact, they want to report it to the DNR or the local ranger at the park. So they turn around, they get back, and when they get back to the RV, so the boy, the father and the son, they get the horses in the trailer. They drop the mom off at the RV, and she comes running out of the RV, waving her hands. "Guys, come quick! I got to show you something." So the father and the son they race to the RV, and Dennis, all around the RV, circling it, are those same bipedal tracks. These
Uh-huh.
wolf life tracks. They immediately get in. The son came up separately in a truck. So they took the truck, they drove back in to get the DNR officer or somebody to show them these tracks. Well, there's only an administrative assistant in there. Everyone's gone for the day. And they said, "Well, we need somebody here in the morning." So later that night, they start a fire. They're outside and it's getting dusky dawn. And they're sitting around conversing. And all of a sudden, from the tree line, they hear these sounds of like a wolf, or at least that's what they say in the book. Tell me a wolf, but a really robust, very throaty. So they kind of get a little spooked, and they decide, let's go back to the RV and go to sleep because they couldn't wait to get up in the morning to go show these tracks around the RV. They get inside, ready for bed. Then they hear about an hour or two later during the night, they hear this crash and they get up, they run up. The dad and the son get out of the RV and they look toward the tractor trailer where the horses were. The hinges on the trailer were ripped off of the trailer.
Uh-huh.
In the distance, they see this thing on two legs running into the wood line. The man, and he says later in the story, he wishes he would not have done this. He has a shotgun, he fires towards this thing, this person or
Uh-huh.
whatever. That's the thing that he regrets, but he did not get in any trouble or anything. So he gets to the back of the trailer, goes in where the two horses are, and one of the horses, the rear quarter legs, behind the quarter hind legs, right up top there was three slashes in his buttocks area, and it was
Uh-huh.
bleeding like a claw ripped at it. Now it didn't hit a major artery. It wasn't bleeding profusely, but it was definitely a cut there. So they couldn't, they tried to apply a gauze or medication, but the horse was frantic, bucking, so they let it be for a little while. Out of nowhere, Dennis, at the property is a state park ranger and an administrator. They're right on the scene. and they're asking what happened. We heard a shotgun blast. And then they said, well, look at my horse. Something broke into this trailer, and look at my horse. Something clawed my horse. The son says, dog man. That's what he says. And the administrator, the sheriff, looks at the son, looks at the dad, gathers them together, and said, look, guys, I could have you arrested right now for firing this firearm, which you're not supposed to have here anyway. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to pay for the medical expenses for your horse. We're going to pay for your overnight lodging, cover all your expenses. But here's what we ask of you. Do not report this or make this public about what you saw here tonight. Now, now they look now this the boy, the son, and the dad look at each other like kind of like what is going on here? And these two men were very adamant about this. Look, do not. And they weren't very nice, although they experienced something to their horses and seen something that doesn't exist supposedly. They pack it up, they go home, and not 48 hours less than getting home, they were paid another visit by another governmental person. And they get in there, they got a black leather suitcase. These men are dressed in suits, and they enter the home, and they went over this story again and told them how adamant they were about this not going public. But they weren't nice again. They were almost like threatening, but they tried to sweeten the pie because in the black case was $10,000. And here they just left it. They opened this bag and there's all this money. So let me tell you, Dennis, there's something going on in that park that they want covered up.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, Rob, I've had a lot of governmental interference during cryptid hunts and cryptid associated situations. Definitely. Oh, yeah. The drones, bike SUVs, the works. I even had some interesting stuff happen in my home with a Bigfoot cast that was done that I left in the back of my truck. But anyway, here's the interesting thing, when you think about this stuff, Rob, and we're kind of guilty of this. I've had my own experience. I may have had a dogman sighting. I'm not sure about it. I think I told you about it. The old farmhouse I went in, it had a big bush pile in one room. And what was freaky about that, when I first got into cryptid research many moons ago, I studied without doubt many of the tracks, how they are made, whether they're four-legged or two-legged, whether they step in their own tracks, and all. You have to study all this stuff to understand what it is you're seeing and tracking out there in the woods. And like you said, you got to study the scat too. That's very important. A lot of that tells you what you're after there and all that. But here's one more thing that I think we're guilty of. Sometimes, a lot of us, and it's just a human thing, we tend to put human qualities on these things when they're not really human. They're not human at all,
Right.
you know? And we might think that Bigfoot is the protector of the forest and all that stuff, but is he really? I mean, does he think about that? We don't know. But we try to put that human characteristics on Dogman and some of these other cryptids that we look for. I think we have to be very careful about doing that. We don't want to do that because that's not only puts us at a disadvantage, it clouds our investigative research up, in a bad way. So we've got to be very careful about putting our human qualities on them.
Yeah.
They're not human.
Yeah, and there's so many people, and God bless them because many of my friends are this way. A lot of people I have on my shows are this way, of course, and you've got to respect their opinion, their thought, their theory, what they've experienced. I don't view Bigfoot or any of these cryptids with any human qualities. Now, are there Bigfoot that appear to have a look of a human? The one I saw at first looked like a human being. I always tell people look like a human with some deformities, some Down syndrome, but looked very odd. But then again, it was covered in long reddish brown hair, right? I mean, so
Oh yeah.
it's not human. I mean, it might look human.
Uh,
We have so
no.
many stories about people. We've heard the stories about the hunter. He's looking, siding up a
Yeah.
deer. Then all of a sudden, he sees a alleged Bigfoot, and he wants to shoot it. But then when he focuses in, I couldn't pull the trigger. It just looked too human. So I think a lot of
Look
people
too
get
human.
tricked.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people
Yeah.
think consider a human. Now, I certainly would never shoot one. No, I would not.
Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
that's where I think a lot of people get this. And for me personally, friendly forest giant, anything that's not human, anything that roams the forest, whether it's a mammal that we all know about or some unknown cryptid, they're not to be trusted.
Uh-huh. That's true.
My,
That's true. And if they don't think human, they don't act human. We can't take them in a human way.
no,
You're dealing with something completely different, and you have to look at it that way. Yeah, definitely, I agree with you.
yeah.
And
So
and it's a thing about this that stands out in your book that I read, are that a lot of these people are taking this at its face value. They're saying, "Oh, this happened to be," that's the way eyewitnesses go.
yes,
And I've interviewed. I mean, I remember my first Bigfoot case many, many, many years ago, and I could see the fright and the anguish in these people's faces and their reactions to it.
yeah,
When you talk to people like that, and you can see this in the book too, okay,
yeah,
that you're still getting that feel of it, that
yeah.
these people, that's what they saw, and it affected them
Yes, it did.
very much.
It did affect them. It's again, excuse me. Again one of the main reasons because I was drawn to many of these stories. I could feel, I had empathy. I could feel their anguish and their pain in a lot of the stories. Now, for everybody listening, not every story in the book is a person suffering from heartbreak or PTSD. There are some basic ones. I mean, there's scary ones, there's heartfelt ones. Some are kind of humorous to a
Yeah,
point.
yeah.
So it's a nice mix, but the vast majority, all of them, I would say 100% of these people still today question the reality of what they saw because they can't process. And even if they didn't see it physically, to have red eyes follow you home, to have
Mm-hmm.
nightmares and dreams, you
And they
know,
say it's still ongoing. That's the interesting thing about it. It's still an ongoing thing, but they've kind of learned to assimilate it a little bit, to live with it, and or take it for what it is. But it's still ongoing.
it's ongoing. For me, having my encounter, Dennis, is ongoing for me. I finally have some closure on it took me a long time to get over my girlfriend passing away, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and I
Right.
blamed it on Bigfoot or whatever I saw. See, I have a hard time even calling it a Bigfoot because I still, to this day, Dennis, can't tell you 100% that's what it was. But, because, yeah, it's just a sad thing. I have closure on that, but it's a mystery as to how she passed away 2 months later to the date of the encounter. And they got going in the book and tell briefly about the encounter. I don't even know. I didn't get any autopsy reports. Her mother did not like me. We weren't married,
Uh-oh.
so I don't even know. She told me she had a heart attack. The woman was 40 years old, didn't drink or smoke. I mean, people drop dead of a heart attack, but when you're in pretty damn good health, I got to question that because we were hit with the
Yeah.
infrasound. I think that sonic blast we got hit with. She fell off the boat, and I my
Right.
my my vision was distorted. I'm still thinking that has something to do with it, but I have to look past that. But that's really why I view Bigfoot and cryptids differently, as not to be trusted. These people that go to gifting sites and say that they speak to them and they're friends, they ain't your friend. They got. I'm sorry. I will. People will be mad at me when I say that. I get it, but for me, with what happened to me, is why I have my formulated my opinion. Because to me, it wasn't a friendly forest giant at all. Now, I could be wrong. It could have been a demon of some sort, right? I don't know. But it looked
That's
like
that's
something
what I
I could.
say. Here's the thing, Rob, and I'll say this. Don't mean to interrupt you, but let me
Yeah,
say
no.
this right quick.
Yeah,
If you deal with the paranormal, and like you said earlier, and I agree with you 100%, it's all connected. Okay, you got to play that demonic card on this little game table here of the paranormal. You can't
yeah,
ignore it because it's a very important card, and you have to
yeah,
be very careful with it. But let me say this. For me, for Bigfoot, and what strikes me as strange, I want to mention this as your book, that the people are taking all these stories, take a lot of it in stride, which is good, okay, which is good in a way. They take it in stride. But when I had my Bigfoot experience, when I saw Bigfoot, here's what I told somebody the other day. That settled the question for me. Okay, the evidence of my own eyes. I was a believer. I knew without doubt, hey, he is there. He is real, whatever he may be. I know he exists. But one question has haunted me. I'm sure it does you and others. One question that has haunted me over all these years and all these case histories and books and all this. What else is out there?
That's a great question. Yes, that is a question. I've asked you this question on the show many times. There's more than just what we all supposedly know about, isn't there? There's more than Dogman. There's more than Bigfoot. There's more than Mothman. I've heard of Lizard Man. This a Goat Man, and I get a Goat Man exists from what I my understanding. But there's more out there. I was reading that in North America alone, there's what 95 million miles of territory still uncharted or
Uh,
investigated.
yeah,
Can you
yeah. Well,
imagine what's
Rob,
sitting out there?
that's the biggest lie we were ever fed back in school. You remember they said, "Oh, the world's been explored. We know everything about it." That's the
Yeah.
biggest lie ever told.
Yeah,
You know.
no. Hey, and you talk about the forest, 95 million acres, and I could be wrong. It's a huge, unfathomable number. Here's another thing that I'm starting to get more and more interested in and doing some reading on the ocean, right? Wonder what is
Oh
in the
yeah.
ocean.
Or underground.
Mm,
You
mhm.
know, that's a whole world by itself there that we don't know anything very much about. And a
Mm,
lot of these Bigfoot and even Dogman sightings are connected to caves areas and
yeah,
places like that, tunnels and all that. There's a connection, and like you said, it is all connected, I think, to a certain degree. And you just got to look for the patterns. The patterns
yeah,
tell you the whole story, and that's what's so great about these books, like you've written here. I mean, they let you see though and explore those patterns, and
yeah,
help you understand more. And here's another great thing that we gotta take for granted now. Look at us sitting here discussing this,
yeah,
and we wouldn't have done this 50 years ago. We People would have tried to lock us up, probably. I mean, that we were
yeah,
ready for the funny farm kind of thing, but now it's open and discussed more. I
yeah,
think that's good, but
yeah,
we have to be careful with that too because it can be a double-edged knife. Okay, it cuts both ways, and we have
yeah,
to be very careful. But that's what investigative research, and that's what makes you an investigative researcher. That's what makes it that way. That's what investigation is all about. But
sure.
it's good to have this out in the open and talk about it. People take it in stride now more than they used to.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right because 50 years ago, they would definitely put you in a pad. They'd lock you up and throw away the key. And
Mm,
even I can remember even as early as 2018 when I had this is my personal story. Um, it took me forever to tell anybody. Even my parents were
mm,
both alive at the time. I didn't even really tell them for a while. My brother, best friend. Well, I told my best friend was the first person I finally told. He didn't believe me. But too, Dennis is throughout my whole life, though, prior to my Bigfoot encounter, I've seen a lot of like apparitions and ghosts in my lifetime. I thought I've had. I'm a very good judge. I can sense things about people pretty quickly. I remember really quickly is I was as a young boy, 5 or 6 years old, this kid Jimmy, Johnny, whatever his name was. I as a young boy, I thought he was like evil. Now, what 5 or 6 year old thinks somebody's evil? Well, I did. And I would tell my mom and dad that I didn't like this kid. I just did not like this kid. And so
mm,
my mom and dad said, "Well, he probably because he plays with your brother more than you. Just you'll deal with it, whatever." So life goes on. Middle school, he's in my middle school. This kid, every time I'm by this kid, I get this vibe, right?
mm,
And I start telling my friends, I'm 13, 14. Now I'm in high school. I'm playing soccer because we had soccer in gym class, and I'm 17, 18, and this kid is on in my gym class, and we on the soccer field we ran and collided into each other. And I gotta tell you, when I connected with this kid, because we were like we were at shorts, and once some of the boys we were shirts versus skins, so to differentiate between the teams, 10 kids
yeah,
running around, right? So we kind of connected and we were rolling on the ground. And I tell you, I got the creepiest vibe from this kid, and it wasn't. It was something I never experienced before.
Mhm.
So high school goes on. So I graduated high school, and I'm off to college. So I'm off to college. I went to University of Michigan, and so my senior year, I graduate. I get back home. Now I live in Michigan, so I didn't like my last 2 years of college. I lived with the guys at a frat house, for the 2 years. My first living away. So lo and behold, my mom and dad told me, that kid Jimmy who you thought was evil. I go, yeah. Why are you bringing him up? Man, I forgot about that kid. Last time I seen him, I was 18. Well, he murdered his grandmother and is locked up in prison. The kid that I've sensed was evil ever since 5 years old, throughout my
Mhm.
entire life. And I
Well,
knew that there was something wrong with that guy.
that is a gift, Rob. Definitely. It's called a gift of discernment. I have that myself. I don't talk about it much, but I have that as well. It is a gift, though. Like I said about that other thing earlier, it can be two-edged knife, too. You have to be careful.
Mhm.
And I've had a lot of people come up to me just with what you said. Very same thing. And say, well, this happens to me. This happens to me. It's driving me crazy. What can I do about it?
Yeah,
And here's the only answer I can give them. Hey, you got to learn to live with it because that's
yeah,
part of you. That's a part of you. And
yeah,
you got to be able to control it and come to terms with it and let it help you have a better life if
yeah,
you'll do that, you know?
yeah. I've had a lot of that's the most drastic experience. But I can go to a mobile gas station and I can talk to a person for 30 seconds, and I can, not all the time, Dennis, but I can kind of get their intent. I was successful in my business. It was a bar business, and I knew when I hired employees who were going to be truthful and who were going to be there to rip me off and who weren't going to show up to work. I just knew this, and I never had any problems with any of my staff because they all were exactly what I thought they were. Now, the ones some slipped through the cracks, but the ones that I turned away, they got a job at a competitor. They end up getting fired. They end up ripping people off. So I've always been able to kind of pinpoint a person's motive or their narrative, or
Hmm.
their intentions. Intentions is a big key in what we do here, right?
Right.
So, but yeah,
Yeah,
so
and you can pick up on that sometimes and not even know it, and it's
yeah.
just sort of in the back of your mind there. But
But see,
it's interesting. It really is, you know. And as a
yeah,
parapsychologist, I find that very interesting how these things relate to the human mind, you
yeah.
know, and how it has reactions on us in that respect.
And for many years, I thought what I just told you about these other, like the mobile gas, the bar and all that. I just thought that was everyone. Everyone could do that. Everyone had that intuition. Then I said, well, Rob, most people do have intuition, yes. A lot of people do rely on their first emotional thought, but mine, I guess, is at a different level because I can tell you, I'm 100% on with almost 99% with all of these. I summed up all my friends before we became friends, and I do that. Now I analyze people all the time, and that's the thing you were talking about. That I just got to live with that and stop doing that as much. But then again, it just comes natural, right? And it's something I've always done. So
Hmm. Yeah, that's you. I agree with you 100%. Let me ask you one question. We're gonna have to
yeah,
wind up here, but let me ask you one question and I know you've been asked it before. I have to too. But do you think that with Bigfoot, there's some kind of a interdimensional thing going on?
oh, I do. I do. I think they can. I think they can walk through portals. I believe that trees are a portal for a lot of these cryptids. I think that
Hmm.
trees are openings to portals. But I will tell you this: what I first convinced me was I had Ron Moorhead on the show last year. He read that. I read that book, The Quantum Bigfoot. And now during my interview with Ron told me, he says, Rob, 30, 40 years ago, if you'd have came up to me in an interview and said, "Hey, Ron, I think that Bigfoot's interdimensional," or if you mentioned anything paranormal or alien, he says, "Young man, I would have turned you around and sent you home." Now he tells me today he thinks it's all quantumly based. He thinks that they can take this immense energy, and they can turn that energy to utilize for travel. That's why they can go from point A to point B so fast. That's why they can materialize or dematerialize or cloak. So yeah, I think they're dimensional. I believe in the portal aspect. And yeah, so I'm not a firm believer that 100% flesh and blood. There might be a flesh and blood with a form of paranormal aspect to it, or maybe like a hybrid human of some sort. I don't know, but not a human
Or a
like we
spiritual
discussed earlier.
being, a spiritual
Or
being. You know, Rob,
you go back
definitely.
to the First
Yeah,
Nations, definitely think that most of them
yeah,
think they're a
hmm
spiritual being.
yeah.
So I believe that as well. I mean, you could
And you
we
know,
it's not,
for a spiritual being to morph that way or move that way, they would have to deal with frequency, energy, and
yeah,
vibration.
yeah,
And I think a lot of that's got to do with that, you know, definitely, because I have seen other spiritual entities manifest that way. But the Bigfoot I saw just dematerialized. I mean, he was just gone. There's no way possibly, physically possible, that it could have gotten away from me in that instant when it stepped behind that tree. It just wasn't there with me in this reality anymore. You
yeah.
know,
See, hmm again,
wow.
it is. When you think you know something, you go back to the drawing board. There's so many different things,
Mhm.
so many subtopics of one topic.
Yeah.
If you think about it. So,
Uh,
but yeah.
that might make some more in book number two there, Rob.
Mm,
Definitely.
mm,
There you go.
yeah.
I'm charting a course for you here. Okay.
Yeah, yes, you are. Thank you so much. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But anyway, definitely we've got more to look at, and it's never boring. It never is. And so I really appreciate you coming on here tonight, my friend.
Oh, I thank you
And
for having me
it's
back on or
we
on.
always have some good discussions.
No, we
Definitely.
do. It's definitely never boring. And you know that you could probably have a 5 hour show, right? But you know,
Yeah.
you know how that
We could
goes.
go on all night, but I think we'd put some people to sleep eventually. But
Well,
anyway,
I did find this most people's attention spans, even if they like the content, is like
yeah.
night.
Well,
That's why I do a 90-minute show.
I tell you what, get it, folks. You will not be sorry you did. Read it. I tell you, I finished this in one night. By the way, I mean it didn't take me that long. I'm a fast reader anyway, but
Yep.
I knocked this thing out. I said I'm not gonna put this on the back burner. No sir.
Well, that's good.
That
No, I'm
knocked
good.
that in.
I know when it's a real page turner because it's the funny thing, I haven't read it yet. you know, I read. I tell you what, I was kind of mad though because I did do all the editing, and I said, "Dadgummit, you know that there was a couple. I had a couple myths in there with the punctuation and grammar, which I'm like, I can't believe it. And
Well,
you
that
know that
happens. That happens
I know.
a
I mean, when
lot.
you go, it was 44,000 words. I mean,
Yeah.
so,
Well,
but yeah,
it gets, especially if you're doing your own proofreading and your diction and all that stuff. But I've had a
yeah,
lot of people ask me, "When's your next book coming? When's this?" But you got to understand when it comes to writing, that's your baby, it's your child, and
yeah,
you're not going to let it go until it's ready.
yeah.
That's the way it goes.
But I am pleased with it, and
Absolutely.
thanks for having me on. And I guess for new people too out there, if you could, my channel is Bigfoot Michigan Rob as well on YouTube. That'd be cool. I have 2 live shows and the
Mhm.
book. Yeah, thank you so much for those that have bought the book already too. I thank you. I know a couple people in chat have, and I will ask you this with Amazon for those of you that have bought it and those that perhaps are going to buy it. When they send you an email, Amazon, about what you think about the book, leave a review because, and I don't care,
Absolutely.
it could be positive or even negative. Be honest, be truthful, because it's all analytics these days. The more reviews you get, the more Amazon will push the
Absolutely.
marketplace.
Yeah.
So
And I will definitely be leaving you a review. Okay,
thank
so
you.
don't worry about that.
I won't. Yep.
I enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you coming on here, brother.
I
And
appreciate you having me.
we're gonna be looking forward to doing our Christmas thing, definitely,
Yep.
or if we talk before then.
Yeah.
But
Right.
uh, definitely looking forward to it, and I really appreciate you spending this little evening with us on
Oh
Paranormal
yeah.
Point of View.
Yeah. I had a great time.
And
Thanks.
I hope everyone tune in to Rob's show. This guy is always busy. Okay, He's always up to something. He's a Rolling Stone. He doesn't gather
Yeah.
any moss. And so he's got several shows on, several podcasts, and I love to watch them when I get a chance.
Yep. Yep.
And and your books are available on Amazon.
It's
How
on
about Barnes
Amazon.
and Noble?
No,
Is,
I don't know how to
is,
do that yet. Maybe you could give me some
well,
pointers. Yeah, I don't know. They're right now.
well, I
It's on
think
Amazon.
Amazon's supposed to put it on Barnes and Noble for you. I think, if I'm
Okay,
not
I got to I
mistaken, you might.
well, what I've read, all the disclaimers I read, I didn't really see that, but I'm kind of looking into that. And I think a
Uh,
couple people left well, on my YouTube channel, that's where you can find the link. But also, it's
uh
pretty easy for those of you that have Amazon, and most people do. If you go on Amazon and just type Bigfoot Michigan Rob in the browser, the book pulls
It'll
right
take
up.
you
Yeah,
right
so
to it. Yeah, yeah. And you also have an author's page on Amazon, I guess.
yeah, I
You
set that
might
up
want to check
too.
that out. Yeah, you check that
Yep,
out too. Yeah. So, and
yep.
they can follow you. People can follow you that way, and then when the next book comes out, you'll be notified about it. So that's good.
Oh,
Good to
yeah,
have that. But,
yep,
all
yep.
right. Well, I really appreciate you being here, man. And
I
you
appreciate
take
it too.
care. And
Thank you.
we'll be looking for book two now. Okay. All
Okay,
right.
yeah, I know you will. The pressure's on.
All right. You take care, bud.
You too.
All right. That's my good friend Bigfoot Michigan Rob there. That's the man. And this book is, we'll show it again, the True Cryptid Encounters Book 1. And I also have if you could get you a better look at that, I also have it pull up on the screen for you here, okay? There we go. That's it right there. It doesn't fill out the whole thing and cuts his name off at the bottom a little bit. The name is Rob. Uh, kind of fell there, and that's True Cryptid Encounters Book 1 there, and Rob Carnifel. I'm sorry, Carnifel. And you got to look him up that way, or just put in True Cryptid Encounters. Okay, that's on Amazon definitely. And we had a really interesting show tonight. I'm glad you all could come and be here with us. Appreciate your comments. And I got a big announcement to make here. Um, I have been in some talks with Graham Phillips, the very famous author, television personality. Graham Phillips, the guy who wrote Strange Fate. We're going to set it up to get him on here, and if we do, it will definitely be a special on the Paranormal POV. So be watching out for that. Could be any time. And so we're really excited about that. Where you get this guy? Oh, he is something else. Okay, he is a modern day Indiana Jones per se in a way. He's done it all. He's looked for the Staff of Moses, the Ark of the Covenant, the Holy Grail, Robin Hood. We're gonna have an interesting time with that guy. We get him on here. He is a really nice guy, real down to earth fella. I like his work. I've been following his work for quite some time now, so I think you'll like it too. We can get him on here. All right. I appreciate all of you being here tonight, and for another episode of Paranormal Point of View. Okay, it's all about your point of view. Okay, and we will probably be, like I said, that'll be a special, so be watching out for that, and hopefully it won't be very long when we'll have it set up. So I want to wish you all a good night and be safe out there. Be aware. And as I always say, uh, carpe noctem and embrace the mystery. Until next time.